New York Times Sunday Magazine is a profile of Senator John McCain, Republican of Arizona, and a number of paragraphs devoted to Charles Keating, who was an early contributor to then congressional candidate John McCain back in 1981-82 when he ran first for the House and later for the Senate. And in this book, and there is a relationship, the missionary position, Charles Keating is also referred to in the book by Christopher Hitchens. It's called The Missionary Position, and you write about how Mother Teresa accepted a large donation of stolen savings and loan money from Charles Keating, giving him a crucifix in return and describing this pious fleecer of the small saver as a friend of the poor.
Yes, and taking rides on his private jet and interceding with the court when he was on trial in Los Angeles, saying he was a great friend of the poor. The court wrote to her and said, that's all very well, but he's given you lots of money that doesn't belong to him, belongs to the poor and the small saver. Can we have the money back? She broke off the correspondence at that point, which is very typical of her.
Why did you write the book?
Well, because I couldn't believe that anyone else had... Start again. I couldn't believe that nobody else had taken a second... I can't get this right. It was impossible for me to let such a fat target go by. I mean, here was someone at whom no one had taken a second look, whose publicity was always favorable, not to say adoring, yet who was all the time in the company of dictators and crooks and frauds and bullies of all kinds, and who was preaching a very, very, very reactionary kind of religious fundamentalism, while being universally called a saint. I thought the gap between these two things was so great that it merited a short book. And so it's got in there all the things that you don't know about Mother Teresa but should.
This is the second printing of the book?
It's just come out in paperback, yes. Available at fine bookstores, I believe, everywhere now.
You write that contraception and abortion are morally equivalent. That's the view of Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa says they are.
And you also write about what you describe as her crimes against humanity. What are they?
Well, she went to Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, during the Duvalier period and made a long and groveling speech saying how nice the Duvalier family were to the poor of Haiti, accepting in return a decoration, a medal from them, and justifying their regime. She's done the same for quite a lot of other dictatorships around the world, for Mrs. Gandhi in India, for Enver Hoxha in Albania. She's preached that in Ireland that there should be no divorce and no contraception, which of course only deepens the religious split in Ireland, absolutely the last thing the Irish people need, as well as denying the right of family planning and divorce to Irish people. Though she has praised Princess Diana for getting out of her own marriage, because she's become a friend of Princess Diana, so that's all right, because as is not untypical with people like her, she's a seller of indulgences to the very rich, while a preacher of resignation and submission to the poor, who she's helped to fleece. So it's a pretty long bill of indictment. I noticed that the Congress is about to strike a gold medal in her honor, and I absolutely can't believe that no one will get up and say, look, what are we doing here?
In March of this past year, you wrote this editorial.
Can I just...
Well,
sorry,
yeah, because I'm going to use this as a segue. You wrote that now in her 9th decade, after having spread her benevolent legacy around the world, Mother Teresa awaits her reward. The ongoing challenge to the rest of us is not merely to be inspired by her exemplary works, but to institutionalize them. So I suspect that you disagree.
I did write that. I did write that. This was on the occasion of her stepping down as the Mother Superior of her group to this woman. The example, the argument I make, and I actually read this book, and it is funny. And you, Christopher, you get about 10 more of these, and you could have your own version of Eminent Victorians, which will keep you alive in the 22nd century, memory-wise. But, I mean, I also think that long after I'm forgotten, and Mother Teresa will be a saint, and the fact that all that she did in Calcutta, I mean, doing the things that very few people want to do, which is get with lepers.
Preach there should be limitless. Preach there should be limitless population.
Well, I mean, look, I think the Catholic Church has got as a political entity has not been as effective and constructive as a moral religious entity. And I mean, the Pope, who I'm a big fan of, is sort of a social democrat at heart. And I'm more of a free marketeer. So, but just there's such a thing beyond transcending politics of just moral example.
But may I ask you this? Believe me, the question is neutral. How do you know that she's done any good in Calcutta? I mean, everyone thinks they know that she's devoted her life to the poor of Calcutta. What can they actually say they know about these achievements?
She set up her own, she moved, at the age of 17, she left Albania to go to Ireland with the Sisters of Loreto, and then went to India.
Well, she's been a missionary, all right. People believe that she is feeding the hungry in Bengal, don't they? They believe she's clothing the naked. Now, I ask in my book, we know she's been given a very great deal of money. We know that the standard of her clinics and her hospice for the dying in Calcutta is very near gutter level. There's no treatment there. There's no medicine. People go there to die. So the money isn't being spent on that. She has claimed, however, to have opened several hundred convents in various different parts of the world. I suspect, since she won't allow an audit and she wouldn't give back the stolen money that Charles Keating gave to her or answer questions about it, that all the money that good people like yourself, who believe in her sainthood, have sent her, has simply been spent in building a monument to Catholic fundamentalism.
Well, I guess we have a different perception of what the value of her work has been. I mean, certainly people like Jerry Brown, for example, who went over and spent some period of time helping out, and many others have come away terribly moved and impressed. Like anything, as I was saying about the Marshall Plan, there's more than one way to interpret this. I do think that it is ironic that at a time when feminism, for example, is searching for role models and finding ways to stick it to the patriarchs, that the most remarkable ongoing successful model of feminine empowerment has been Catholic nuns over the millennia, and it's quite something. And Mother Teresa is only the latest in a long line.
Well, she does say that when she got the Nobel Prize, she said abortion was the greatest threat to world peace. I'm very squeamish about abortion myself, but it's hysterically wrong to say that it's the greatest threat to world peace. And I think it's absolutely wicked to say that it's morally equivalent to contraception, or artificial contraception, as the Catholic Church calls it, as if there was any other kind. I think it's wicked for her to campaign against the right of women in Ireland who've been married to wife beaters and drunks and child abusers, to want to divorce them and say, if you try to get remarried, we will never forgive you. We will never forgive you. But forgiveness, by all means, for Charles Keating, forgiveness for the Duvalier family, forgiveness for Union Carbide at Bhopal after they poisoned the people of India there. Forgive, forgive, forgive every time when it's the rich, sale of indulgences, and strict, stern, disciplined, clerical control over sex to the poor and to the gender which you say she's empowering. I've never heard such concentrated nonsense in my life.
You mentioned Jerry